Part 26. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 251. In this case, you are my people from now on, and my orders are supreme. You only need to listen. Immediately, he pointed his finger to Gu Cheng aside and said, and since he can be your palace master, it means that his ability is not higher than yours, so from now on, everything in the Seven Kills Palace will continue as it is, but with the addition of my orders, and you just have to carry them out. As you command. The three of them nodded respectfully. As if he thought of something again, the old man among the three pointed his finger at some of the people who survived in the ruins and said, "Will the master and these people be executed?" After all, they all saw it just now. Hearing this, Qin Feng's eyes sharpened. He turned around and looked sideways at the three of them, and said softly, "You can solve it yourself, but you have to satisfy me." Seeing this, the three of them nodded and understood what Qin Feng meant. Within a few breaths, those who still survived on the ruins died like this, and they were killed by their own people. Immediately, the figures of Soul Demon and Shadow Demon appeared in front of Qin Feng. Looking at the two figures, Qin Feng introduced, "These two people are my confidants, named Soul Demon and Shadow Demon. What will happen in the future, if you have the task, I will ask them to bring it to you." When Gu Cheng heard this, he nodded, and then bowed his hands to the two of them to show respect. He did not belittle them because of their low strength. Seeing this scene, the two of them raised their eyebrows and returned the favor. After all, strictly speaking, they were considered to be members of the same clan. Afterwards, Qin Feng had no intention of staying here anymore, but left with Soul Demon and Shadow Demon. After the three people left, Gu Cheng stood there, his eyes flickering, not knowing what he was thinking. It wasn't until the three people came to them that Gu Cheng came back to his senses and saw the old man leading him asking, "Palace Master, do you think the people in the main palace will find out if we take refuge now?" After hearing this, Gu Cheng turned to look at him, shook his head and said, "No, the Seven Kills Hall has countless branch halls, and there is no shortage of me. What we have to do now is to obey the master's next order. That's it, don't think too much about other things." Seeing this, the three of them nodded and asked no more questions. Mangaizuka. Qin Feng and the others returned here, and soon after, Qin Xian's figure also appeared here. Seeing this scene, the three of them bowed their hands to Qin Xian. Qin Xian nodded slightly. He owned the sky-breaking mirror, and he saw everything that Qin Feng did just now. As for why Qin Xian didn't directly sweep away other forces to gain a foothold? Because Qin Feng felt several powerful monsters not far away watching this scene. Qin Xian stood with his hands behind his back, looking into the distance, and said quietly. Within a moment, the three of them came to a dark canyon, where monsters were densely packed and there was a swamp filled with poisonous gas everywhere. Therefore, the demon race has a feud with the human race, and the two have been at war for hundreds of epochs, without stopping for a moment. Demon race. What news? But the specific time is not certain. Qin Xian frowned. When the three of them left here, Qin Xian also asked which races in the 10 domains of the system were more terrifying and troublesome. Among them, there was the demon race. The demon race was very scary, not counting the powerful ones in the profound immortal realm. In fact, in the 10 domains, except for races such as dragon race and phoenix race, no one can beat the demon race. This has to do with the rules of righteousness. Master, there is news here. I believe it will be of great help to us in the future. If you are a Zheng Dao sect, if you expand and strengthen your own power by eliminating other forces, this will not be allowed by the strong people of the right path, and you will even be surrounded and suppressed by the strong people of the right path. Under normal circumstances, demon race will stay between the demon realm and the nether realm, and will not come to other realms for no reason. If it comes to other realms, it means that demon race has ideas about this place. Because demon race's favorite food is to devour humans. He didn't want to rely on him. After all, monster's siege was very terrifying and could kill you. Then he disappeared in place. Swish, swish, swish. But Qin Xian did not do this, because the prerequisite for going to the realm of life and death is that he needs to reach the cultivation level of the immortal king, because there will be a black abyss at the edge of each realm in the 10 realms, and there are some black abyss everywhere. The terrifying monster and some punished people, who do not have the strength of the immortal king realm, pass there, which is no different from dying. The appearance of demon race means that this place will soon be devastated, but this is indeed the best place for my profound heaven sect. Hearing this, the three of them nodded, yes. Seeing this, Qin Feng looked at the corpses of the 3 black wolves coldly, snorted coldly, and did not stop here. Thinking of this, Qin Xian looked sideways at the 3 of them and said, you should take advantage of this time to find Wu Su and bring him back. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng sneered and said disdainfully, how dare a group of beasts be so presumptuous, they are simply looking for death. It is mentioned in the introduction of the system that once demon race appears in a place, it means that that place will soon be surrounded and occupied by all the powerful demon race until it turns into a dead land. On a cliff, 3 black wolves drooled when they saw the figures of the 3 people. A trace of murderous intent flashed in their eyes, and then they turned into a black afterimage and rushed in front of the 3 people. The soul demon added another sentence. The soul demon located next to Qin Feng's right hand lowered his head and said respectfully, ho ho ho. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Feng condensed a long sword and slashed across it. The 3 black wolves howled and instantly turned into pieces. Because this is the flying immortal domain, it is the place where the right path has the most influence, and it can also be regarded as an orderly and regular place. And if you wait until demon race comes to attack, when all the forces are unable to hold on, Qin Xian can directly take action to resist demon race's offensive and eliminate it. This will not only allow profound heaven sect to gain a foothold, but also gain the power of all the powerful forces. The recognition of the power can be said to be both fame and fortune. The demon race is a clan, but it also has a clan leader. The one who rules this clan is the demon palace, and the one who controls the demon palace is the demon lord. Qin Xian waved his hand and said indifferently, no matter how long it takes, even if it is 10 years, we have to wait. After all, this is the best way to get a foothold, otherwise we will not have this opportunity. If you want to expand your power in this way without being surrounded and suppressed, you must go to the realm of life and death. It is a chaotic place. You rely on your own strength and ability. There is no order and rules there, and it is also the worst place for evil people. Favorite place. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 252. After half a stick of incense, the 3 of them came to a place full of gorgeous flowers. Although the flowers were very gorgeous, there was purple mucus on the petals. The purple mucus dripped on the ground, and traces of hot gas would emerge. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng's expression condensed, and he naturally knew what kind of flower it was. It was a purple spirit flower that could poison a strong person in the celestial immortal realm. In addition, there are other flowers that are more toxic, but they are not as good as the purple spirit flower. Immediately, Qin Feng looked around again and found that there were several white bones among the flowers. Not surprisingly, he must have died here because of his greed for these flowers. Qin Feng's eyes were burning, and suddenly, the sound of fighting resounded in Qin Feng's ears. Qin Feng's expression changed, and he led the 2 of them to the edge of a cliff. Under the cliff, they saw a woman in purple robe fighting with a man in Qingxian Taoist robe. The sound was huge, and the figure of Jian Guang flashed by from time to time. Clang. It's just that it seems that the man is struggling a little, but the woman in purple robe is getting stronger and stronger. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng curled his lips, looked down at the two people below and joked, "It turns out that it is here. It seems that Wusu has provoked someone else's flowers." When the soul demon saw this, his eyes moved and he asked, "Master, do you need to go down and help him?" Qin Feng shook his head, "Don't worry, Wusu won't die so easily, let's take a look first and then talk." Hearing this, the soul demon nodded. Below the cliff, Wusu was panting and kept dodging moves. Looking at this, it seemed as if he was giving way to the woman. But Wusu's face turned a little pale, as if he had consumed too much. He couldn't help but look at the purple-robed woman who was violently performing tricks in front of him, and said, "Girl, I really didn't see you taking a bath, why are you chasing after me like this, don't you want to let go?" Hearing this, the purple-robed woman's face turned red, her bright eyes stared at Wusu and she gritted her teeth and said, "You still have the nerve to say that you didn't watch me take a bath? Huh, I clearly saw you staying there, with such a wretched expression, I'm sure I have some unreasonable thoughts, if I don't kill you today, my surname will not be Luo." After the words fell, the purple-robed woman gathered the fairy energy around her. The next moment, a powerful purple mana rushed towards Wusu. The sound was loud and pierced the eardrum, as if it was going to kill Wusu directly. But how could Wusu do what she wanted? He gritted his teeth and boom. I saw a mighty fairy energy erupting from Wusu's body. In an instant, a golden dragon hovered behind Wusu. A pair of golden pupils stared at the purple-robed woman, roared angrily, and wagged its tail. He rushed towards her. Boom! The golden dragon directly broke through the moves performed by the purple-robed woman. In order to avoid hurting the woman, Wusu controlled the dragon's sound and directly slapped the purple-robed woman to the ground with a dragon tail. At this moment, the surrounding area was turned into ruins. A large plume of dust and smoke enveloped the two figures. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng, who was on the cliff, did not choose to watch anymore, but came here with the soul demon and the shadow demon. Feeling the unfamiliar aura, Wusu was shocked. He thought someone was trying to make a sneak attack, so he once again controlled the golden dragon to fight behind him. The two soul demons and shadow demons were a little surprised to see this, but Qin Feng, who was in front, did not panic. He clenched his fists and punched the golden dragon on the head the moment he rushed over. Boom! The golden dragon was instantly blasted by the hammer, turning into immortal energy and dissipating. The huge sound shook the sky and resounded through the clouds, causing a group of strong men who were hunting monster to become vigilant. "Brother Wu, we haven't seen you for so long and you want to bully me so much." Qin Feng stepped out, looked at Wusu and said with a smile. Hearing the familiar voice and familiar face, Wusu, who was originally wary, suddenly showed a hint of joy. He quickly patted the dust on his body, bowed his hands to Qin Feng and said, "I'm sorry, brother Qin, I thought someone wanted to attack me, so." Wusu's apology was very sincere, but he was also a little shocked. Because they had not seen each other for only a few days, why did Qin Xian, who was only in the semi-immortal realm, suddenly possess such powerful strength? The move just now, but with his full strength, even a strong man at the peak of the celestial immortal realm would fall with hatred under this move, but Qin Feng in front of him blocked it so easily. Wusu didn't know that the person in front of him was Qin Xian's clone, and thought he was the real Qin Xian. Qin Feng waved his hand and said it was okay. Then he looked at the purple-robed woman unconscious and lying on the ground not far away, and joked, "Is this the partner you are looking for in the upper world? Not only is she strong, but she is also quite good-looking." Hearing this, Wuxu's face turned red and he was a little embarrassed. Knowing that Qin Feng had misunderstood him, he quickly explained, "No, it's just like this for some reason." "Oh." Qin Feng raised his eyebrows, leaned over and asked softly, "What's the reason?" Seeing Qin Feng asking such questions, Wusu hesitated and didn't know what to say. Seeing this, Qin Feng did not continue to tease him. He patted Wusu on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Okay, if you don't want to say it, don't say it. Tell me what happened to you these days and why you came here. Are you here?" Hearing this, Wusu patted his chest and took a deep breath. Fortunately, Qin Feng did not continue to ask any more questions, otherwise he was afraid that he would lose face. After all, he accidentally saw her taking a shower. After half a stick of incense, Qin Feng's eyes burst out with a golden light. He nodded slightly, and said secretly, "It seems that demon race will be preparing to attack here in less than 3 days." When Wusu first came to the upper world, he saw a demonic figure. Out of curiosity, he followed it, but in the end he lost it and accidentally saw the purple-robed woman taking a bath. While Qin Feng was deep in thought, Wusu came to the side of the purple-robed woman, carefully lifted her up and turned her back to him, and then Wusu used his hands to instill mana into the purple-robed woman's body. After a while, the purple-robed woman woke up, and the first thing she saw was Wusu with a smile on his face. Wusu waved his hand in front of the purple-robed woman and asked softly, "You're awake? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" After hearing this, the woman in purple robe realized that she was being held by Wusu. Her cheeks instantly turned red. She quickly broke away from Wusu's arms, stood up and kept backing away, gritted her teeth, bit her red lips, looked at Wusu and cursed. "You beast, this girl is like this and you still want to take advantage of me? Are you still a human being? Do you still have a human conscience?" Wusu looked stunned and thought, "Did I take advantage of her? Is it possible that even if I touch her back, I'll forget about it?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 253. Wusu didn't understand, but he didn't explain. Anyway, he had already done what he had to do. Whatever you think. Immediately, Wusu sat cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and began to restore his magic power. Seeing this scene, the purple-robed woman also put down her vigilance and happened to see Qin Feng and the other 3 people nearby. However, she did not go up to talk to them. Instead, she found a hidden place nearby to recover her mana. "It seems that all my injuries have been healed by him." The purple-robed woman looked at the recovered injuries in her body and murmured. Then he thought of what he had just said, sighed slightly, and blamed himself. "Maybe I blamed him wrongly, I'll just apologize to him later." At this point, the purple-robed woman closed her eyes and began to restore her mana. After all, she and Wusu had just consumed too much mana. If she didn't recover in time, she would be doomed if she was attacked by someone. A few hours later, the purple-robed woman opened her eyes, clenched her fists, and found that her mana had been completely restored, and she looked outside with a pair of bright beautiful eyes. I found that night had fallen quietly, and the entire canyon was surrounded by the gloomy night. There was no sound in the air, but it made people feel a little scary. The purple-robed woman didn't think too much and walked towards where she was just now, only to find that Wusu and Qin Feng had already disappeared. Seeing this scene, the purple-robed woman felt a little disappointed. "Forget it, let's find a chance to apologize to him next time." Then he took out a disc and threw it into the ground. The next moment, a black hole glowing blue appeared in front of him. The purple-robed woman walked in without hesitation. On the cliff, 4 daoist figures slowly stood here. What the purple-robed woman had just done had been seen by the 4 of them. These people were Wusu, Qin Feng, Soul Demon, and Shadow Demon. Wusu did not leave because he was afraid that the purple-robed woman would be in danger, so he stayed here all the time. Qin Feng and others could not keep him away, so they had no choice but to wait. But he accidentally saw the round disc of the purple-robed woman. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a golden light, and he murmured, "This thing is interesting. It seems that I have to find a chance to get one back." Wu Su said nothing and lowered his eyes, wondering what he was thinking. At the same time, in a dark cave in Mangashong, a man in black robes was kneeling here, seemingly reporting something. The man in black robes seemed to be afraid of Sirius's anger, and nodded in panic, "Yes, master." After a long time, Qin Feng's figure appeared behind Qin Xian, leaned over and cupped his hands and said, "Master." Within a month, Qin Xian's strength had quietly reached the Earth Immortal Realm late stage. During this period, he did not use any system values, but obtained some pills from the Seven Kills Hall. The man let out a miserable scream, rolling on the ground and wailing, looking at the soul demon with pleading eyes, begging to spare him. Seeing this, Sirius did not make a sound, but stared closely into the eyes of the man in black robe. This situation made the man in black sweat break out in cold sweat, swallowed his saliva, and did not dare to make a sound. There was also silence in the cave. 1 month later. Hearing this, Qin Xian nodded, looked at him sideways and asked, "How is it? Have you heard about the demon race?" The soul demon on the side understood, smiled ferociously, came to the man's side, stepped directly on the man's arm, and kept twisting and crushing him. Qin Xian came to the man's side again, looked down from a high position, and said with an indifferent expression. Seeing this, Qin Xian's eyes moved and he came to the man's side. He looked directly into the man's eyes and asked, "Where are you from? What's your name? How many forces are behind you?" This person is Sirius, one of the 12 generals of the Demon Palace. Qin Feng nodded, and the next moment, the figures of Soul Demon and Shadow Demon also appeared here, and they were holding an ugly-looking, black-haired, dying man in their hands. "Ah! Yes, yes, thank you, sir. It's just that my magic power is too little now and is close to drying up, so you have to find some human monks for me and bring them to me. Do you understand? Dazu Immortal Dynasty, in 3 months I will completely destroy you and make you pay a heavy price, ha 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 ha." Sirius looked at the man in black robe and ordered. Sirius' dark eyes lit up, and he let out a low roar, his voice as hoarse and terrifying as that of a demon in hell. Seeing this scene, Qin Xian still said nothing. Seeing this, the soul demon nodded and came to the man with an indifferent expression, preparing to torture again. Qin Xian's figure appeared on a mountain top, where white clouds were lingering, birds and cranes were flying, and beautiful music was resounding everywhere, just like a fairyland on earth. "How's it going? Is this horrible feeling good?" Sirius laughed wildly, the sound was very sharp and harsh, echoing in the cave. Hearing this, Qin Xian nodded and said with an indifferent expression, "Okay, then just say what you need to say." But the man didn't seem to want to feel it anymore. He quickly knelt on the ground, looked at Qin Xian and nodded and said, "I don't want to bear that feeling anymore. I'll tell you everything. Are you saying it will take another 3 months? After saying that, the man in black robe quickly left here, as if he didn't want to stay here for a moment. Hearing this, the dying man looked at him with disdain and sneered, "Who do you think you are? The master behind me is not something someone like you can touch. If I hadn't been careless, how could you have caught him? Me? Humph." At this time, the man's body was already covered with scars, and there were pieces of meat everywhere on his fingers. You could see the bones inside if you looked at it. The man was speechless after hearing this, his chest kept rising and falling, and he was breathing heavily. After a while, Sirius sighed, shook his head and said, "That's all, 3 months is just 3 months." But the soul demon remained unmoved, as if he didn't see it, and continued to squeeze and squeeze with an indifferent expression. This practice lasted for nearly half a quarter of an hour before it stopped. Qin Xian didn't speak, but looked at the soul demon aside, his expression always remained calm. Looking at the leaving figure of the man in black robe, Sirius's dark eyes flickered slightly, like a netherworld lamp reaching directly into the underworld, making people plunge into the abyss. Hearing these words, the man in black robe's originally worried heart calmed down at this moment, exhaled a breath, nodded seriously and said, "Obey my master." Above him was a figure covered in black robes, with a pair of dark eyes that seemed to be able to penetrate directly into other people's hearts, making people terrified. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 254. The man spent a stick of incense telling Qin Xian all about where demon race was going to capture and where it was located. He also told Qin Xian the location of Sirius, one of the 12 generals of the demon palace. Mangaizuka. Qin Xian raised his eyebrows, but he didn't expect his enemy to be by his side all the time. But I have to admire demon race's hidden ability. It's so perverted that he doesn't even feel it when he's near him. Thinking of this, Qin Xian ignored the man and disappeared here. Seeing this, the soul demon's eyes moved and he understood the meaning. He put his left hand on the man's head. The next moment, a mighty suction force came from his hand. It appeared that he wanted to see through the memory in the man's mind, but the moment the soul demon's suction came into contact, an explosion sound was heard, and the man was instantly wiped out. The soul demon was not surprised when he saw this scene. He seemed to have guessed that this would happen. He murmured, "Sure enough, demon race has his own mark. Once I want to devour his soul, it will self-destruct." Seeing this, Soul Demon's figure also disappeared here along with Qin Feng and Shadow Demon. The figures of Wang Guizhong and Qin Xian appeared here. Qin Xian didn't make any move because the system's voice flashed through his mind. Ding, release the mission, help Dazhu Immortal Dynasty resist this demon race offensive, reward, 5,000 system value, rank 3, 2 mortal immortal jade beads, cultivation reaches celestial immortal realm. Hearing this, Qin Xian's eyes moved, but without saying a word, the realm appeared in his hand. With a wave of his hand, Gong Mo's figure appeared in front of him. Seeing Qin Xian's figure, Gong Mo bowed his hands respectfully and said, "Sect Master." Qin Xian nodded and told Gong Mo everything the demon race man said just now. After listening, Gong Mo's eyes moved, as if he thought of something, and said in a deep voice, "Sect Master, this demon race named Tianlang is one of the 12 generals of the demon palace. If nothing else, he should be the one from the original demon race, the souls that survived the battle between good and evil. He probably hasn't fully recovered yet, and his strength is probably only around the true immortal level." Hearing this, Qin Xian's eyes flickered slightly and he said, "Is it possible to deal with him with your strength?" Hearing this, Gong Mo lowered his head, pondered for a while, and said with some uncertainty, "I don't know this. I can only say that I won't lose, but I can't kill him." After listening, Qin Xian didn't say anything more. He turned his eyes to Qin Feng and ordered, "In this case, then this demon race man named Tianlang should be hiding in a cave in Mangashong, so before he fully recovers, you and Gong Mo go to kill him, save the time something bad will happen again." Hearing this, Qin Feng nodded without hesitation. In fact, Gong Mo did not need to participate in this battle. He could solve it by himself. Qin Xian did this to prevent any accidents from happening. Gong Mo naturally did not refuse. A moment later, the two of them appeared above the 10,000 Ghosts' tomb. They kept looking for the figure of Sirius, but they searched one cave after another and the final result was disappointing. Until the two came to the 10,000 Ghosts' tomb. A dark place in a ghost cave. And here there is a dark cave. The demonic energy splashing out in the cave makes people feel scary. If nothing else happens, Sirius will be inside. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng looked at Gong Mo and asked, "Are you going up first or should I go up first?" Hearing this, Gong Emo pretended to think for a while and said, "Why don't we come together? It will be safer this way." Seeing this, Qin Feng did not refuse or speak, and turned into a stream of light and rushed into the cave. Seeing this, Gong Emo knew that Qin Feng had a problem with him, so he followed closely without saying anything. In the cave, after being screened again and again, the two finally arrived at a dark golden hall. There is a strong demonic aura spreading everywhere in the hall. It can be called a demon gathering place, which is the best place for demonic cultivator people. The two of them did not pay attention to this, but looked at the boulder at the top of the hall in unison. That's where the demonic aura is the strongest, as if there is a real demon being suppressed here. Seeing this scene, Gongmo's eyes lit up. He condensed a fireball in his hand, and threw it at the boulder without hesitation. Boom! The moment the fireball hit the boulder, an extremely terrifying and harsh laughter came from it. GGG. It's actually two ants. How dare an ant offend me? I saw a black soul break through the boulder, and turned into a black-robed figure that appeared in the eyes of the two of them. A pair of eyes that glowed with light stared straight at the two of them and laughed mockingly. Not surprisingly, this person is Tian Lang, one of the 12 generals of demon attack. Hearing this, Qin Feng sneered with disdain and said, "You say I'm an ant? Then who are you? You're just a soul living in the world. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me?" After Qin Feng finished speaking, the destruction spirit realm was launched directly. Boom! The violent immortal energy gathered on Qin Feng, and a mighty coercion rushed directly towards Tian Lang, making him feel a hint of death. Gong Emo on the side was shocked when he saw this scene. He looked at Qin Feng in disbelief and exclaimed, "It turns out to be the power of the domain." Feeling the breath of death, Sirius's pupils shrank and his heart rose to his throat. He had no idea that a junior who was only in the Earth Immortal realm would possess the power of the domain, which made him a little scared. After all, the power of the domain is not something that ordinary people can master. Generally, people who can possess the power of the domain will eventually become domain lords. Thinking about his demon race, there are only 2 or 3 people with the power of the domain, and this is all. He is a genius chosen from thousands of people. Forcibly suppressing the fear in his heart, he asked loudly, "Boy, tell me, who is your identity? Or are you the descendant of any domain lord in the 10 domains?" Qin Feng didn't say anything, and used the power of the destruction realm to upgrade his strength to the celestial immortal realm. And Sirius's strength is not at true immortal level, but has returned to the level of golden immortal 9th layer. With one suppression, Sirius instantly changed from golden immortal 9th layer to true immortal 9th layer. Feeling the strength of true immortal 9th layer, Qin Feng frowned, looked at Gong Emo who was thinking at the side and asked, "Didn't you say that this guy only recovered to true immortal? This has reached golden immortal." Hearing this, Gong Emo scratched his head in embarrassment and looked at Qin Feng aside with a hint of apology. "Sorry, maybe I guessed wrong. But I am certain that the reason why this guy can recover his strength so quickly is because he got a treasure that can restore his strength. Otherwise, it would be absolutely impossible for him to be promoted to such a state," Gong Emo said with a serious expression. Seeing this, Qin Feng shook his head helplessly. Since the battle had begun, he could only bite the bullet. But unfortunately, the strength of celestial immortal realm was no different from an ant in Sirius's hands. With just a slap, the two of them were directly slapped back and hit the wall heavily. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 255. No, the gap between us and this guy is too big. If we can't kill him, then we can only evacuate first. Qin Feng stood up awkwardly from the rubble, shook his head and sighed. When Gong Emo heard this, he was speechless and took out 3 thin needles. As a generation of immortal venerable, he still had some back UPS, otherwise he would not have been able to guarantee his success in front of Qin Xian. These 3 needles are called dragon-tangled needles. As the name suggests, once the needles are inserted into someone else's body, the dragon-tangled needles will turn into a crusher, constantly rotating inside the other person's body, and the tied person his cultivation level will also continue to decline. This can be said to be extremely cruel, but the current situation has no alternative. Thinking of this, Gong Emo looked to Qin Feng and said, I have a way to deal with this guy, but I need Qin Feng's help. Just say it. Help me attract this guy's attention so he doesn't notice me. After hearing this, Qin Feng nodded without hesitation. He could still do this easily. The next moment, Qin Feng trembled, clenched his fists, and rushed towards Tianlang. The mighty fist shadow came with earth-shattering momentum. Seeing this, Tianlang sneered disdainfully and said, even if you have the power of the domain, you are just a frog in the well, and you don't know your own strength gap. After the words fell, Sirius no longer feared or worried. True immortal 9th layer's strength exploded. The next moment, Sirius' figure was like lightning, constantly shuttling around the hall. In an instant, countless black holes appeared. Black swords rushed towards Qin Feng one after another. Seeing this, Qin Feng didn't panic at all, because everything was going according to his ideas. Finally, he put away the released fist shadow, and then saw an azure dragon pattern radiating light from Qin Feng's chest. The next moment, a dragon roar spread throughout the hall. Roar! The large black sword was instantly shattered. Hearing the roar of the dragon, Tianlang was instinctively afraid. His fear gave Gong Emo, who was hiding in the dark, a chance. The 3 dragon-wrapped needles were released without hesitation. In an instant, it stabbed into Sirius's chest. Sirius didn't feel anything, he just felt like something like a mosquito had bitten him. Sirius touched his chest and didn't pay attention. He looked at the 2 figures and said coldly, I didn't expect that you still have a divine beast. It's a pity that your divine beast is still suckling. Otherwise, I might really be dead today. Han has fallen. Qin Feng said nothing and stood there quietly with a very calm expression. Seeing this scene, Sirius frowned and said to himself, is it possible that this guy has some tricks up his sleeve? He's so ordinary. But Sirius didn't think too much. Just when he was about to take action, a sharp pain suddenly shot through his body. Ah! Sirius screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. Before he could say anything, Sirius's cultivation level began to fall like a meteorite, and in an instant, the realm reached the celestial immortal realm. Such a scene made Sirius look shocked, pointing his finger at the 2 of them and angrily yelling, despicable villain, you actually used such a vicious strategy against me. When Gong Emo heard this, he chuckled, shrugged and said, strategy is also a kind of strength, isn't it? Besides, who asked you to be so trustworthy? Sirius thought about it and found that it was indeed the case. If he had not hesitated or feared, and directly released all his strength to rush towards the 2 of them, they might have been killed by him in an instant. Thinking of this, Sirius couldn't help but feel regretful. Unfortunately, there was no regret medicine in the world, so he could only bear it by himself. It's a pity that Tianlang now has no chance to resist, because Qin Feng has already taken action at this time. I saw an azure dragon hovering around Qin Feng. Azure dragon's dragon eyes stared at Sirius. From this moment on, Sirius was his prey. Immediately, Azure Dragon let out a roar, and its body was like lightning. Rushed to Sirius. Puff! Sirius's chest was instantly penetrated, and a large amount of minced meat was exposed from it. Blood spurted out uncontrollably and rolled down. Ah! Sirius screamed again, but this time, his voice was even louder. Sirius's face showed a mixture of reluctance and regret. It's a pity that everything is a foregone conclusion, and regret has no effect, because Qin Feng's figure has already arrived in front of him. Suffer death. As soon as the words fell, Qin Feng gathered all his magic power in his hands and transformed into a fist shadow that covered the sky and the sun. The next moment, Qin Feng aimed at Tianlang's eyebrows without hesitation. Boom! Sirius was beaten to death without any chance of resurrection. As a result, the entire hall began to shake slowly, and huge stones kept falling on the hall one after another. Seeing this scene, the two of them did not hesitate and turned into a stream of light and left the place. After a long time, the entire cave began to shatter and turned into ruins. The demonic aura also began to gradually disappear with the death of Sirius. Although the method was cruel, the two of them saved countless people invisibly, because tens of thousands of people died in the hands of Sirius. Compared with the cruelty, what the two did was nothing more than a big deal. At the same time, Demon Realm, Demon Palace. In the extremely dark, majestic hall, 7 figures wearing black mysterious robes stood here, and the aura exuding from them was as terrifying as a demon escaping from hell. As soon as the 7 people stood there, it would make people tremble with fear and terror. Suddenly, the leading figure trembled. Seeing this, the other 6 people quickly asked, "What's wrong, Demon Lord?" The Demon Lord shook his head and sighed, "Alas, our Demon Palace has lost another general. I just felt that the breath of Sirius has disappeared. This also means that he is dead and has no chance of resurrection." The other 6 people heard this and looked in disbelief. They thought that the status of the 12 demon generals in the Demon Palace was very high, and their respective strengths had reached the immortal king level. Even a soul body cannot die so quickly. There is only one possibility to explain it, and that is that a strong man of righteousness takes action. Boom! A tall, rough-looking figure slapped the table, and a thunderous voice resounded throughout the hall. "This damn righteous way is a group of hypocrites. They must have planned a sneak attack on Tianlang. Otherwise, with Tianlang's strength, even if he can't defeat him, he would still be able to survive. I must take this tone, and I must avenge this hatred." Snort! The man let out a burst of anger, like an ancient beast. Seeing this, everyone said nothing. Now is not the time for real revenge. They have to wait for an opportunity. As long as they wait, let alone revenge, even dominating the 10 regions will be just around the corner. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 256. Okay, kill one and take revenge. We will definitely take revenge, but not now. We have to consider the actual situation. Although it is a pity that Sirius died, he also left us some good things. The demon lord who was sitting in the first seat looked at Shayi, who was wearing a mysterious robe. His expression remained unchanged, and he spoke to comfort him. Hearing this, Shayi nodded slightly and said no more. For the demon lord, Shayi has great respect, because he is the one who rescued demon race from dire straits. Without the demon lord, demon race would have ceased to exist. A few epochs ago, the demon race was just a weak ethnic group with only 10,000 people. Because of its low strength, it suffered a lot of suppression. Hearing what the soldier said just now, everyone in the mansion turned their eyes and narrowed their eyes slightly, as if they were thinking about something, or it could be said that they were planning. And this is how the human race and the demon race became feuded. A man wearing a robe and a majestic face sat there, his eyes narrowed, stroking his chin, as if he was thinking about something. Among them was the human race. At that time, the human race saw them as weak and often made fun of them. Sometimes they would send strong men to arrest people in their tribe. However, every person who was captured did not come out alive. Shayi's parents, they were captured by this group of people. Apart from him, nearly half of the people in demon race were also captured by the human race and lost their parents. Unfortunately, they were weak and had no choice but to resist even if they wanted to. but there was so much noise in his ears that he couldn't think of anything at all. Despite this, he did not forget his mission, nor did he forget his mission to restore the ethnic group. He would often use half of his cultivation resources to transport to demon race. In this way, in just one era, demon race's strength increased greatly, and its number of people increased greatly. It also evolved from tens of thousands of people to hundreds of millions in an instant. Later, the human race was furious and sent a strong man of the immortal emperor level to sneak into the demon realm, hoping to wipe out the demon race. Unfortunately, all of this was planned by the demon lord. In this strong immortal emperor, when approaching the demon realm, the demon took the initiative to use the ancient formation 9/immortal emperor to kill the immortal emperor. Such a scene shocked all races and caused the human race to lose consciousness. They never expected that demon race actually possessed such a formation. For the royal power to do this can be said to be a traitor to the nation. The man's voice was like a tiger's roar, resounding in everyone's ears. Everyone's expressions were shocked when they heard the words, and they quickly shut their mouths. Seeing that the number of tribes increased, and the number of strong people also began to increase, the demon lord finally couldn't bear it anymore. When his strength reached the immortal sovereign level, he launched a battle against the human race, using the power of an immortal sovereign to fight against 3 human immortal venerables. He was defeated, and even killed an immortal venerable in the end and fled the battlefield. This is equivalent to abandoning the Great Wall and letting the nomads invade. After hearing this, the 6 people's eyes flashed and they did not refute. Theme: the most important thing for us now is to accumulate strength instead of fighting blindly. This man had a look of disbelief on his face and couldn't help but slump down on the ground, with a trace of despair on his face. Just when demon race felt that he was about to face despair, the demon lord suddenly stood up at this time. He used his supreme talent to infiltrate the human race and became a prodigy of the human race, receiving supreme glory and countless training resources. It was just such a killing of the immortal emperor that all the races began to take the demon race seriously during this period, but unfortunately it was already too late. Under the leadership of the demon lord, the demon race became better and better with each generation until it became a demon race that can stand up to the Phoenix today. A clan as big as Dragon Race. The man naturally noticed it, sighed, and said nothing, because he knew what these people were thinking, and it was useless to say too much. After hearing this, everyone looked at each other and lowered their heads, but they didn't think so in their hearts. It was enough to show that these people did not share the same hatred. Although the demon lord was very talented and even fought 3 immortal venerables with the power of rank 1 immortal sovereign, which was shocking, everyone in the world at that time was still not optimistic about demon race because the gap between demon race and the human race was still too big. Dozens of figures were sitting among them, whispering to each other. Wuun City, in the city lord's mansion covering an area of 10 acres. Just as the man was thinking about how to resist demon race's offensive, a soldier wearing armor and looking anxious walked in quickly. He quickly knelt on the ground, clasped his fists and said, "The city lord is in trouble. The man lurking in Kaiwan City is here." The demon suppressing array is vaguely touched, as if someone has done something to it, and now, a large number of demonic cultivators have entered Kaiwan City, and countless people have died innocently and tragically among them. Although Wuun City has a true immortal realm strongman this time, it is of little use. This true immortal realm strongman cannot possibly compete with all the demonic cultivators on his own. But Tianlang's death will create a certain situation, and the offensive on the Great Zhou side may be dropped by half, so I decided to send 2 magic soldiers there to support and make a full-scale attack, but it is not a real attack. The attack is just a test to test the decision of their righteous forces to see whether they will fight or not. Now that Kaiwan City's demon-suppressing array is damaged, it means that the city in the future will also fall with difficulty and cannot withstand it at all. P.S. I almost forgot one thing. I forgot to write it down before. The system no longer has the function of once every 3 days. Hearing this, The soldier stopped talking, lowered his head and whispered, "The Lord of King Quan City has completely surrendered to demon race, and now Kaiwan City is close to destruction." What? After hearing this, the man stood up suddenly and was shocked. After thinking about it, he hurriedly asked, "What about the royal power of the city lord?" Seeing that everyone was still discussing, the man frowned, patted the table, and shouted, "That's enough." The demon lord stood up. His tall figure had a domineering power, but he also felt a sense of security. 2 months have passed quietly, and a war between the human race and the demon race is about to begin. Seeing this, the man looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, "What we should be talking about now is the upcoming demon race offensive, not the interests you people say. If we can't even stop the offensive, then let's talk about the interests. What's the difference between not talking about it? After all, the demon suppressing array is integrated, especially in a dangerous place like Kaiwan City, where is the core of the demon suppressing array. As long as they are not demon race experts above the level of immortal sovereign, the others cannot break through it at all. Without the assistance of the demon suppressing array, it would be extremely difficult for them to fight against the demonic cultivator, not to mention they didn't know who the strongest demonic cultivator would be this time. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 257. The man on the main seat was furious when he saw everyone's appearance. He knew what these people were thinking. He clenched his fists and ordered the soldier below, "Immediately send troops to kill those who are currently in the city lord's palace." They were arrested and then surrounded the city lord's palace. The city lord now suspects that there are spies of the demonic cultivator among them. What? When everyone sitting in the city lord's mansion heard this, their expressions were shocked. They looked at the man in disbelief, and in the blink of an eye they began to curse. "Han Chuang, what are you doing? Don't forget, we also have military power. What you do is completely breaking the rules. Do you want to be exterminated?" "That's right. How could we, who have been colleagues for so many years, become demon race's spies? I'm going to sue you." One voice after another kept throwing at Han Chuang, but Han Chuang seemed not to hear it and looked at the soldier. "Go quickly." "Yes." Seeing this, the soldier nodded quickly, and then pinched the token on his waist. The next moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps came from outside the city lord's mansion. Hundreds of black armored soldiers were seen arriving outside the city lord's mansion with swords on their waists. Under the instructions of the soldier, all the soldiers immediately surrounded the city lord's mansion, and formations began to be arranged. Such a situation made the people in the city lord's mansion even more unhappy, and they couldn't stop cursing Han Chuang. But Han Chuang still turned a blind eye and ordered the soldiers to control them. Just when the soldiers were about to control them, suddenly, one of the Daoist figures directly killed several soldiers in front of him, and then looked at Han Chuang with cold eyes, with a serious look. A desperate stance. "Zhao Yuan, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" Seeing Zhao Yuan killing someone, the people on the side reacted and yelled loudly. Unfortunately, Zhao Yuan just looked at him coldly, burst out his own strength, and rushed towards Han Chuang. Seeing this scene, Han Chuang narrowed his eyes slightly without any fear, and snorted coldly, "Sure enough, you have the demonic cultivator's spy. Let's see if this city lord doesn't suppress you here today." After the words fell, Han Chuang no longer hid, and his celestial immortal realm cultivation level exploded. The next moment, a spear appeared in front of him. Han Chuang held the spear tightly and danced for a while, then aimed at Zhao Yuan who was attacking. Boom! 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 The two fought back and forth, with spears and moves flying in all directions. Within a few rounds, Zhao Yuan was defeated. After all, Zhao Yuan's strength has barely reached Celestial Immortal Realm, and he cannot be Han Chuang's opponent in the middle stage of Celestial Immortal Realm. Furthermore, Han Chuang has been in the military for many years and has made decisive moves. He has killed countless demonic cultivators during his military career. His aura is not inferior to that of a strong man at the peak of the celestial immortal realm. The spear can be danced as he pleases in his hand. It's like a hand growing on his body. Looking at Zhao Yuan's dying figure kneeling on the ground, Han Chuang walked over, pointed his spear at Zhao Yuan's eyes, and said coldly, "Zhao Yuan, as the commander-in-chief of Wuyun City, you are willing to become a Warcraft soldier spy. Are you still a human being? Don't you know what demon race is? They are beasts that feed on us humans. If you are demon race's spy, are you worthy of your ancestors? Don't forget how your ancestors survived." Ha ha ha. Listening to Han Chuang's coherent words, Zhao Yuan, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly laughed wildly and sneered, "Don't I know what you are saying, Han Chuang? I was forced to. If you hadn't let Zhenxian Mansion go, those beasts acted recklessly, how could I become like this? Don't you know that they did a lot of stupid things in Wuyun City? Countless girls were gang raped and killed by them, even my daughter. How old is my daughter? She was only 14 years old and yet she suffered. Why are you being tortured like this? Why do you think you are? Ah! Me joining the demon race? Haha, do you think I want to? But I was helpless, I wanted to avenge my daughter. So I had no choice but to join the demon race, and the demon race agreed to me and gave me powerful power, allowing me to break through to the celestial immortal realm at such an age. Just to find an opportunity to kill those people." Hearing Zhao Yuan's coherent words, Han Chuang's pupils shrank, he looked at his rough hands, and couldn't help but lose consciousness. Zhao Yuan's words kept wandering in his mind. The others were shocked when they saw this scene, and then showed a hint of sympathy. What Zhao Yuan said was indeed correct. People from Zhenxian Mansion had been burning, killing, looting and raping women in Wuyun City. If they weren't from Zhenxian Mansion, how could they still tolerate them to this day? After a long time, Han Chuang sighed, looked at Zhao Yuan and said feebly, "Actually, I know what you said, but I can't do anything about it. After all, I am just a city lord, not a county lord. What they did, I also vividly remember that even if I wanted to take care of it, I was powerless. After all, they were members of the Zhenxian Mansion, with extremely high status and could not be shaken at all. The princess also told me that day that no matter what they did wrong, they could not be punished. Insult them and treat them well. But I didn't expect that they would do such a disgusting thing to your daughter, so today, I have no choice but to apologize to you." As soon as he finished speaking, Han Chuang lowered his head, dropped the spear in his hand, leaned towards Zhao Yuan and clasped his fists, his expression extremely sincere. But Zhao Yuan shook his head, without giving any face, and said coldly, "I don't accept your apology. I have been defeated by you today, and my wife also committed suicide earlier, so there's nothing left to live for. Come on, give me a good time." After finishing speaking, Zhao Yuan closed his eyes, seeming to have despaired of this world. Hearing this, Han Chuang sighed. He understood Zhao Yuan's current mood, and no one else could bear it. He looked at the soldier who was in a daze, waved to him, and secretly sent a message, "Take Zhao Yuan away from Wuyun City, and then spread the word that he is dead." Hearing this, the soldier came back to his senses, understood the meaning, and nodded respectfully to Han Chuang, "I obey." Then Han Chuang was dragged out under the gaze of everyone. Everyone only heard a popping sound and could no longer feel any breath. In fact, Zhao Yuan did nothing wrong. It was Zhenxian Mansion and the princess who were wrong. Later, Han Chuang picked up the spear again, looked at everyone with an indifferent expression, and said softly, "It was just a small episode, and now I still suspect that there are spies of demonic cultivator among you, so I can only ask you to be more patient. Got it?" After hearing this, everyone nodded cautiously, not daring to say anything more. At the same time, in Kaiwan City. At this time, in addition to the desolation that day, there was also a sense of deathly silence in the city. Only bright red blood and miserable screams could be seen flowing everywhere in the city. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 258. Ha ha ha, the meat of the human female cultivator is really delicious. A man with a sickly face and somewhat evil look stood on the roof of a house and said with a sinister smile. I saw that he was still holding a pretty woman in his hand, but now the woman's robes were all torn, exposing the snow-white skin. Unfortunately, only a little bit could be seen, because the rest had become deep into the bone marrow. Flesh and blood. It is enough to show what kind of torture this woman suffered during her lifetime. Okay Gi, after eating, it's time to get down to business. Don't forget the orders given to us this time. I saw a figure appear out of thin air behind the man, patted his shoulder and said. When Gui heard the words, he nodded. His mouth suddenly became very big and he swallowed the woman in one gulp. He licked his lips with his scarlet tongue as if he still had something to say. Afterwards, the two disappeared here and continued to look for their prey. Demonic cultivators are everywhere in Kaiwan City now. Humans can't help but run away in a hurry. Only some soldiers are resisting with difficulty. Unfortunately, this resistance has little effect. Within a few breaths, these warriors who fought desperately were instantly killed by a strong man from the celestial immortal realm. The instigator of this battle, a traitor to the nation, was still drinking tea leisurely in the city lord's palace, completely ignoring the outside world. Horrible scene. After all, Wan Quan is only responsible for destroying the demon-suppressing array, and has never said that he will kill his own tribe at will. In this way, he still has a bit of humanity, but only a little bit. After a long time, a figure of a man in black robe appeared opposite Wan Quan, but Wan Quan's expression remained calm, as if he had already guessed the arrival of the man in black robe. The man in black robe also sat down unceremoniously, sipped a cup of tea, looked at Wan Quan and said, "Congratulations, Master Wang, I have to congratulate you. You did a good job this time. The big shots above are very satisfied and appreciate you very much. I heard that a demon-level warrior will come to pick you up soon, and he may give you some treasures to improve your cultivation." Wan Quan didn't seem to hear it and kept sipping tea. After a while, he opened his eyes, looked at the man in black robe, and joked, "Don't talk about me, you should be very happy too, right?" Hearing this, the man in black robe frowned. "What do you mean?" Wan Quan smiled and said leisurely, "Your master Tianlang is dead." "Tianlang is dead? Aren't you happy?" Hearing this, the man in black robe narrowed his eyes, revealing a trace of killing intent, but Wan Quan didn't care about it and continued, "Don't be in a hurry to kill me, this matter is not a secret, let alone you and I have been working together for so many years, don't you still know?" The man in black robe did not speak, but put away his murderous intention, looked at Wan Quan and said coldly, "You'd better not talk about this matter. After all, the protagonist this time is not me, but two demon soldiers sent by the demon palace. But don't you also have autonomy?" Hearing this, the man in black robe's eyes lit up and he didn't speak. Instead, he poured himself a cup of tea and drank it. Seeing the man in black robe like this, Wan Quan also stopped teasing boringly, seemed to have thought of something, and asked, "By the way, has the true immortal realm powerhouse over at Wuyun City done anything?" "I don't know," the man in black robe shook his head, "my demon race army only captured Kaiwan City, not the entire Guan County. How can I know the situation in Wuyun City?" After hearing this, Wan Quan nodded and said nothing more. He lowered his eyes and wondered what he was thinking. At the same time, the branch hall of Seven Kills Hall. The soul demon's figure appeared beside Gu Cheng out of thin air. Feeling the familiar aura, Gu Cheng, who was practicing, opened his eyes, looked at the soul demon and asked, "I wonder what mission the master has sent." "No mission," soul demon shook his head. Gu Cheng raised his eyebrows, "Then what do you want here?" The soul demon's eyes lit up and he said with a ferocious smile, "Take the 3 elders of the 7 kills hall with me to a place. When you get there, the master will tell you." Hearing this, Gu Cheng nodded and crushed something. The next moment, the 3 elders of the 7 kills hall came to the main hall. Before the 3 of them could ask questions, a black hole transformed from a whirlpool appeared in front of the soul demon. "Come in with me." When the 4 of them heard this, they nodded and followed. Mangaizuka. The figure of soul demon and the 4 people appeared here, and they saw Qin Feng, Gong Mo and Shadow Demon standing in front of them. Seeing this scene, the 4 of them looked at each other with a hint of confusion. Looking at the 4 people, Qin Feng looked indifferent and spent half a stick of incense explaining some things to the 4 people and what they wanted to do. After hearing this, the 4 people's eyes lit up, and they knew that the force they were loyal to their master was named Profound Heaven Sect, and they also knew what they were going to do this time. Seeing this, Gu Cheng pondered for a while, looked at Qin Feng and asked cautiously, "Master, do you mean that we will take action as long as the demon race army breaks through a county?" "That's right." Qin Feng nodded without changing his expression, "This is also the order of the person behind me. As long as you do well in this war, you will have the opportunity to meet the person behind me." After hearing this, everyone was shocked and a little excited, but they still calmed down and nodded heavily. Then, the 4 of them looked at Gong Mo, who was silent at the side, and found that they had not seen this person before. Seeing that the 4 people's eyes turned to him, Gong Mo looked at Qin Feng, who nodded. Seeing this, Gong Mo introduced himself and said, "I am Gong Mo from the 9 Yuan Peak, the 8 major peaks of the Profound Heaven Sect." The 4 people's hearts trembled when they heard this. They knew that the identity of Gong Mo in front of them was not an ordinary person, and they smiled kindly at him. Gong Mo naturally saw this appearance, but he didn't say anything. After all, his identity was nothing to hide, so he still stood there indifferently. If Qin Xian hadn't ordered him to be a part of this mission, he wouldn't have wanted to come out. He just wanted to stay in the realm and practice with peace of mind, so as to break through the realm as soon as possible. Afterwards, Qin Feng explained some things to the 4 people. After the 4 people listened carefully, he waved them away. Now they just have to wait for Demon Race to prepare to attack the city again. Demon Race seemed to have heard the words of several people. Within less than a day of occupying Kaiwan City, he continued to move towards Wuyun City. However, Wuyun City was not so easy to win. True, who owned Zhenxian Mansion, Immortal Realm experts also have the support of fierce piercing crossbows. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 259. This also caused the speed of the capture to slow down. This situation stumped everyone in Demon Race, but a few days later, 2 powerful demon soldiers sent by the Demon Palace also arrived here. The strength of the 2 demonic soldiers reached the Golden Immortal 3rd layer. Within a few rounds, the true Immortal Realm strongman was instantly killed. He could not even hold back with his piercing crossbow. After killing the remaining strongmen of Zhenxian Mansion, the demon soldier turned his attention to the stinging crossbow again, and used his methods to destroy these things one by one without hesitation. In this way, the last hope of Wuyun City was destroyed, and the battle situation instantly turned to Demon Race's side. Countless people began to flee out of the city, but it was useless to escape. In the end, they were caught by the Demon Race people. What awaited them was torture worse than life. Of course, some of them were lucky enough to escape. In addition to these, there are still people fighting to the death, and this person is Han Chuang, the Lord of Wuyun City. Although he killed 3 strong men from the celestial immortal realm with his superb marksmanship, it was of no great use. After being spotted by a true immortal realm man, Han Chuang began to chase him. In the end, Han Chuang was attacked by a true immortal realm man. After taking a palm, he fell under a cliff, and his life and death were unknown. In the next half-month, Guangjun was captured by demon race. Naturally, such a big event spread to the ears of Emperor Ji Kai of the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty. Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty, Fengtian Palace. 8 golden stone pillars tower into the sky, with dragons and phoenixes carved on them, lifelike. The dragon's eyes seem to be real, watching the people in the hall, suppressing them with majesty. In the main hall, there were still hundreds of officials from the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty, large and small. On the throne, a middle-aged man wearing a 9-clawed golden dragon robe, with a majestic face and a crown on his head sat there. A pair of deep eyes kept turning like stars twisting, making people unable to figure it out. He exuded a bohemian, wanton, arrogant, and domineering aura. He was Ji Kai, but at this time, Ji Kai's face was a little ugly, and his brows had already furrowed into the character Sichuan. Especially when he saw the officials, big and small, still whispering to each other, Ji Kai became furious and slapped the table. Boom! The thunderous sound resounded in the ears of officials of all sizes in the court. Seeing this scene, everyone knelt down without thinking too much. Seeing this scene, the 2 of them dragged him out without hesitation. After the soldiers left, Ji Kai began to reprimand the important officials of the court again, saying that they were useless and couldn't do anything well, etc. Your Majesty, calm down. Hearing this, Er nodded quickly, yes. But God Ji would listen to them. With a wave of his hand, he saw 2 soldiers walking in with majestic faces and swords across their waists outside Fengtian Hall. Then, he clasped his fists at Ji Kai with a respectful expression, Your Majesty. Immediately, the eyes of the 2 seemed to see through the minds of everyone in the hall, until they saw an old man with a panicked look. Then he disappeared into Fengtian Palace and appeared in his palace. The ministers had no choice but to swallow without daring to refute. After all, Ji Kai, as the emperor of the immortal dynasty of Great Zhou Dynasty, even if he is immortal, has the power to reach heaven. As long as he opens his mouth, no one dares to say anything. Seeing this scene, everyone's faces showed a trace of cold sweat. They swallowed and did not dare to make a sound, for fear of offending Ji Kai's long face. Your Majesty, calm down. Even the Prime Minister did not dare to speak and lowered his head, but his complexion was better than others. The woman's slender jade legs flickered under the cover of the golden robe. I saw a charming woman standing there in the palace. Just the sight of her back would make people addicted. An emperor like Ji Kai who could listen to advice would not. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and patted their chests. Every time Ji Kai got angry, someone would either die or suffer disaster. Seeing this, the old man quickly shouted at Ji Kai that he was wronged. Ji Kai turned a blind eye to this and waved his hand indifferently. Looking at the people below, Ji Kai was furious and started to curse at these officials. The woman's eyes were like water, but with a touch of coldness, and she seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. Her red lips were so bright red and tender, and her whole body exuded a fragrance, just like a fairy from heaven who fell into the world. You bunch of losers usually have mouths like trumpets and keep shouting, but now Guan County fell and was breached by demon race. Haha, you are so powerful. You can't even defend the county. I really don't know what the emperor is using to support you. Is the salary I have given you insufficient? Huh. Otherwise, you will offend Long Yan, unless of course you encounter an unreasonable emperor. The woman was wearing a golden red robe. The robe covered the woman's proud figure, leaving only the snow-white skin on her neck exposed. After hearing this, Everyone nodded quickly, bent down, and cupped their hands and said, "I will obey your majesty's order." Seeing this, Jikai nodded and waved his hand impatiently, "Okay, then let's retreat." Upon hearing this, the officials quickly shouted to calm down, as if they wanted to extinguish Jikai's flames. I also want to know why someone told me the news after Gwangjun City was breached. What is the reason? Could it be that you want to rebel? Ah. The golden robe is studded with jade beads everywhere. The jade beads are all crystal clear and bright, like stars one after another. The two men bowed their hands to Jikai, and then dragged the old man out of the hall like a pig in public. "Your Majesty, I have been wronged." Looking at the two of them, Jikai took a breath and tried his best to calm down. Then he gave instructions, "I will take down the culprit of this war and send him directly to the sky prison. He will be executed on a given day. If he is here, anyone among them who dares to come to beg for mercy or ask questions will be taken away and punished with the same crime." They have experienced this feeling of being out of breath many times. Although they are used to it, they are still afraid from the bottom of their hearts. I believe that all of you have seen the scene just now, so from now on, if there is any county guard or city lord who is incompetent, don't hesitate to kick him out, no matter how strong his background is. Anyway, I just said one sentence: those who are capable will go up and those who are incompetent will step down. Do you all understand this? After a while, Jikai returned to the throne, but his tiger-like eyes were still staring at the ministers. Even so, Jikai at this time was at least not as scary as before. The voice of the old man shouting that he was wronged became farther and farther away until he disappeared. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 260. When the woman saw Jikai's figure, her originally cold face instantly revealed a bright smile. The woman's smile made Jikai's irritability gradually dissipate, and was replaced by a full sense of happiness. Just Jikai's Empress, Luo Binglan. His Majesty. Luo Binglan immediately trotted up to Heimkai, completely ignoring her etiquette as an emperor and empress. Luo Binglan's slender fingers held Jikai's thick palm, and her voice was delicate, making Jikai couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. Jikai nodded and looked at her with gentle eyes, a smile on his calm face. If the court officials saw it, they would definitely be shocked and would never believe that the person in front of them was Jikai. Looking at Jikai's brows that had not yet relaxed, Luo Binglan felt a pain in her heart. She looked at Jikai's face and asked, "Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? Binglan seems to have some unhappiness in your heart. Can you tell me about it? Do you listen, concubine?" Hearing Luo Binglan's words, Jikai shook his head, put his arms around Luo Binglan's waist, looked at her and replied softly, "It's just some court matters, listening to it will only make people irritated." Hearing Jikai's refusal, Luo Binglan's eyes dimmed a little, and she leaned gently on Jikai's strong chest and said softly, "But Binglan wants to share his irritability with you. I don't want to see His Majesty be so irritable." He. Jikai looked at it and smiled. Compared with the 3,000 beauties in the harem, his favorite was Luo Binglan. Among so many beautiful women, he only chose Luo Binglan, and he only loved Luo Binglan. Because Luo Binglan was very different. He preferred Luo Binglan's tenderness and care to the coquettishness and cuteness of other women. Seeing that Jikai didn't reply, Luo Binglan was a little angry and puffed out her mouth. It looked very cute. Jikai laughed when he saw this and pinched Luo Binglan's mouth with his hand. "Your Majesty, please stop teasing me." Then Luo Binglan held Jikai's palm with her slender hands, shook it, and said softly, "Tell me, I want to share the burden with you." Seeing this scene, Jikai had no choice but to tell Luo Binglan everything that happened in the court today. Hearing this, Luo Binglan frowned and said, "Oh, does it mean that demon race has now entered the territory of Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty?" "Right." Ji Kai nodded solemnly, and then became a little angry again, scolding the ministers. If those useless ministers hadn't caused trouble, how could my great Zhou immortal dynasty be invaded by a demon race? Humph. Seeing Ji Kai's anger, Luo Binglan felt a little heartbroken again, and quickly hugged Ji Kai with her body, as if she wanted to use her warmth to influence Ji Kai. Your Majesty, there is no need to be angry. It is useless to be angry with those people. They may even hurt yourself. Why don't you just look away from them? You can also take advantage of this demon race attack to spot check some useless ministers. When Yanji's eyes lit up, and then she couldn't help but pat her head. Oh, look at this, why didn't I think of this? Then he burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. He couldn't help but kiss Luo Binglan's forehead, looked at her with love in his eyes, and said happily, she is indeed my lucky star. You are right. From now on, I will never feel guilty about trivial things again to the point of being angry. Hearing Ji Kai's praise, Luo Binglan did not show complacency, but shook her head. I am not your Majesty's lucky star. Even if I don't say it, your Majesty will know it in the future. I am just adding fuel to the flames. Why? When Ji Kai heard this, he waved his hand and said, how can this be done? I say you are, but I don't care anyway, you are the lucky star of my great Zhou immortal dynasty. Then Ji Kai seemed to think of something again, and suddenly a lewd smile appeared on his majestic face. He leaned next to Luo Binglan's ear and whispered a few words. Luo Binglan blushed instantly when she heard this, feeling a little shy and at a loss, but she still nodded. Seeing this scene, Ji Kai became even more happy, picked up Luo Binglan and went to the dragon bed. What followed was a fierce battle that lasted several hours. A few hundred words are omitted here. In the early morning of the second day, the sun was particularly dazzling, shining into the Fengtian Hall of the great Zhou immortal dynasty. Ji Kai came to Fengtian Hall early and sat on the throne. At this time, Ji Kai's face was full of spring. When the ministers who came in saw such a scene, they couldn't help but look at each other, and they were a little confused. What happened to your Majesty today? Why are you so happy? Seeing the officials arriving, Ji Kai coughed heavily, which instantly woke up all the ministers in the court. The ministers understood what he meant and quickly returned to their seats and stood up. Then he knelt down with his hands clasped together, and shouted in unison, I will see you, your Majesty. Seeing this scene, Ji Kai raised his hand without changing his expression, indicating that he could get up. Seeing this, everyone stood up and returned to their positions. Seeing everyone lowering their heads, Ji Kai sat majestically on the throne and talked about what happened yesterday, and then what he said, he shouldn't be so angry, etc. The courtiers were a little shocked when they heard this, but they listened patiently. So this emperor has decided to send Marshal King Ji Tian to lead 100,000 soldiers to stop demon race's next offensive. Do you have any opinions? After hearing this, everyone did not speak, but looked at Prime Minister Chopin, who was standing in the first place on the left. Xiaobang's eyes moved, and he stood up, bowed his hands to Ji Kai with a respectful expression, and said, Your Majesty, I think that in addition to sending Marshal King Ji Tian, we should also bring General Guanlong there. Oh! Ji Kai raised his eyebrows, stroked his chin and thought for a while, then replied, Okay, in that case, just listen to the Prime Minister. This time, the Marshal will be led by Marshal King Ji Tian, and the Deputy Marshal will be General Guanlong. Do you have any opinions? Chopin returned to his position without saying a word, which seemed to indicate that he had no objection. Seeing this, the ministers cupped their hands and replied, I have no objection. Seeing this situation, Ji Kai didn't say anything, and ordered someone to bring Marshal King over, then handed him the military talisman, and then told Ji Tian some important things and so on. In this way, the news fell. A battle between good and evil is also coming. When all the forces within the great Zhou immortal dynasty heard this, they immediately became energetic and led their disciples, apprentices, etc. to prepare to go to Guan County to observe. The army needs 3 days to reorganize before it can go. After all, 100,000 army is not a small number. 90% of the 100,000 army has reached the Earth immortal realm, which can be regarded as some elite soldiers. It is difficult to gather them in a short period of time, so they have to be transferred from other cities. In addition to these, there are also some armors, weapons, and so on.